hello, internets, and welcome inside the Midlife Pilot Podcast. This is a podcast all about flying and being a pilot in midlife. And we are so glad that you're joining us for episode 38 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we're going to talk Tailwheels and Osh Kosh, two unrelated topics, but related because they're aviation. And my name is Chris Moran. I am the Midlife Pilot on YouTube, and I'm glad that you're here. And I'm also glad that my friend from deep in the heart of Music Row is with me as well, fresh off of I don't know what you've been doing, a Tailwheel endorsement for sure. It's Brian Siskind. Good evening, young sir.
Hey, man. First of all, it's a very strong intro. So thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I noticed also, and the audio audience will not be able to, that's hard to say, audio audience. The audio audience will not be able to pick up on this. But I noticed that when you were doing this very strong, authoritative intro, you were conducting. You were doing this with your hands. Yeah. And, I thought, well, that makes sense because you've been actually conducting.
I have. We had a concert of our community band on Friday night, a John Williams extraordinaire. I know I have some fellow musicians who are subscribers to my YouTube channel. In fact, some much higher level musicians than I. And we had a great concert on Friday night and a good recording of it. And it was great. I played French horn on 9 tunes and conducted 4 of them. And it was awesome. Really, really fantastic. And I've been working nonstop on the audio mix, and I can't wait to share it with everybody. It was super fun.
But you played on this thing, you recorded it, you video recorded it, you sort of produced it all. You did about 100 things, and then you would go between playing French horn, right?
Yep.
And then conducting. Sounds like this has probably been an incredibly rewarding and time-consuming thing.
Yeah, both of those are very true. But it was, I was a music major in college, so it's fun to be able to get back to that. And I didn't get to pursue that ultimately as a career, but we've got a really great group of volunteer musicians, and they're of all ages, like middle school through retirees and all different skill levels, and it's just so much fun to get all those different people together and make music and watch people learn how to play in an ensemble, stuff you just don't always get. And it was great. And it was like an hour and a half show. I mean, it was a legit. And if you're not super familiar with John Williams' work, it's a struggle, especially for brass. I mean, it is a constant blow. It's like the horn is always on your face, and it is just a lot. And so everybody worked super hard. It was definitely the hardest repertoire we've ever done for a season. And but it was great. Rave reviews. It was very well received. The audience had a great time, and it was super cool.
Yeah, that's and what I saw and heard sounded awesome, man. So
thank you, buddy.
That's really cool to. I think that as midlife pilots, I think a lot of us have other afflictions, and it's nice to see you sort of figuring out how to maintain them all. Although I know this is probably taken away from your flying time some, for sure. That's
all right. It's well balanced, right? You got to have other stuff that energizes you, and music has always been that for me. And it's kind of an escape. It's kind of like flying in that way, right? It's kind of you just kind of can get into that, and it's a whole, you just disconnect from everything else and go, well, you're a musician. I mean, it's
you can't think about anything else when it's happening.
Yep. You're just in it, you're just in it, and it's great. But thank you for asking about it and for mentioning it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. What's the equivalent of an engine out for an ensemble playing John Williams?
I thought a lot about that. Like, the worst fear is things falling apart a little, and can we save it and get back together before we have to, the worst fear, right? Is that you have to stop a piece, and that's the worst fear. And really, we didn't have anything close to that, but it was great. It was great.
Well, if you do it enough times, something will go wrong, but maybe just keep it at 1 for the John Williams repertoire. Is this something you're going to do all the time, or what?
Yeah, I mean, we do a couple seasons a year, and we'll do a Christmas thing in the fall into the winter. And then we do a summer we haven't done themes like this before. Mm-hmm. I don't know what we're doing next summer yet. We started kind of kicking around some stuff, but, I think we're going to do some more like serious concert music, like some actual.
Oh, like Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you been doing?
Oh man. Well, yeah, we're going to talk Tailwheel because I got my Tailwheel endorsement. It's funny because an endorsement's not really much of a thing, but I feel like Tailwheel is its own thing. So we'll get into that. But, I didn't get like some type rating or some, I don't know, like I didn't do anything really, but I did something. It felt like I accomplished something.
Heck yeah.
And then I don't know, otherwise just been all the things, filming things, doing things. I've got all kinds of work and public art projects and documentaries and just whatever, all the things that I somehow keep stirring. And then in terms of the airplane, it's like I just gotten it back out of annual and autopilot installed just for this other kind of issue to kind of rear its head that was a little bit mysterious. Nothing crazy, but nothing dangerous. But there's basically some reason why the plane is running rich. And long story short, I just flew it to another mechanic who's recommended by our mechanic, who's kind of the sort of guru of weird things. So I just dropped that off actually a few hours ago. And so now it'll be, it's been kind of down. Oh, and I also had a flat tire. I had a flat nose wheel. So it's just been like fits and starts and then another thing and another thing. So, but I do think that after this, that's the thing. It was so weird to fly a plane to maintenance. I'm like, God, this thing is running great.
Yeah.
Like, how am I flying to maintenance right now? It's not grounded. Nobody's saying you shouldn't fly it. It runs great. It was nice. So I don't know. It's just one of those things where the overall engine life will be affected if there's gas getting into it's got to go somewhere. So it'll end up in the oil or, whatever, all those things. So it's been educational. But and I try not to be frustrated, but it's been a sort of an uphill thing since I got into this, with unusually long annual and AP install. Maybe not that long considering how much was done. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just ready to like go, and it's just not happening yet. Yep. So, and then otherwise, it's 197 degrees in Nashville, and I just had another bout of smoke. I'm sure you guys did too. That's fun.
Yep.
So anyway, I don't know. I've just been doing all the things and trying to fly more. But I will say that, and I guess we can just kind of turn the corner, right, and get into it. But it's been really cool while the plane's been kind of in its sort of in and out stages of maintenance and stuff, to just be like, whatever, man, that's gonna take as long as it takes. I'm gonna go learn Tailwheel and get an endorsement for that. And Chris, I've got a problem.
What kind of problem?
I mean, it's bad. It's bad, man. You don't want. You think when you make progress in something like aviation that it feels good. I mean, and it does. I got my Tailwheel endorsement and it does feel good, like I accomplished something. But man, now I'm just in this world of hurt. I want a Cessna 140 so bad that I don't even know what to do with myself. All I want to do is that kind of flying. Not all, but a lot of what I want to do is that kind of flying. So I don't know. We can talk about it for a while because I guess we have a podcast and a platform for that. So
right.
I don't know. What do you want? What do people want to know? Or I mean, there's a lot of Tailwheel pilots in here, probably.
I want to know the process. I want to know about it. Like how did it go? What was the instruction like? What were the order of which you learned things? Like
okay.
how many lessons did it take? I mean, like how many, all of the things about just what the process is like to.
Yeah. Maybe you can just guide me through it. Like like you're interviewing me or something and help me kind of stay on track. But, first thing is I just went to the University of Phoenix online. No. So, there's an instructor here that I'd love to have him on at some point. His name is Ben Lehman. Ben and his wife are the founders of Crema Coffee, which is probably one of the earliest and most successful sort of booming coffee shop businesses that happened in Nashville. And he got to a point where he just wanted, so he's gotten into flying and then got into Tailwheel and then got into instructing. So anyway, Ben is flying out of Music City Executive Airport, which is in Gallatin, which is about 40 minutes away to sort of about as across town as you can possibly get from me and then some. But cool little airport. He's got a Cessna 140A and it's a patroller sort of model, which means that it's got longer range tanks and some things like that. But it's a 140. He's got big old Bush tires on it and all that. He's got a great little hangar. I knew that he was the right CFI for me when I got there, and he had these really nice. I mean, the hangar is not it's not one of these eat pizza off the floor kind of hangars. It's kind of rough shot, but he keeps everything super nice, and he's got these couches with this sort of table in the middle there, but on the corner he's got a nice selection of like Japanese whiskeys and stuff. So I knew I was like, okay, I might be heading into the right realm of aviation snobbery that I've been looking for.
That's great.
But anyway, so yeah, Cessna 140, and so yeah, I mean, I guess the next thing to talk about would be what, like sort of first lesson or process or
yeah.
I mean, so you go in first, and it's really ground instruction for an hour or something. Fly or Ben's website is flywithben.com. Probably, and one of the reasons I really wanted to go to him, not because he was also recommended, but just because rarely do I see aviation flight schools or CFIs or anybody have their S together when it comes to just presenting information on the internet. It's crazy how poorly that's done across the industry. And I went to his website, and I was just, yes, like this is rich information. It's relative. It's relevant. It's personal. It's got all the resources, all the things, online scheduler, just all the things all built in. And I realized, like, wow, this is an independent CFI that's doing this in this way, and it's his plane. Mm-hmm. And I thought, this is really going to be good, because you really can trust that you're being taught. And he rents his plane to people that, sort of qualify to do it. So I just thought, well, surely he's going to teach me well if this plane is his baby, and he's going to train me to fly it by myself. Right. So this is going to have to be good. And so my first lesson, I went in there and did groundwork. And without getting to too much of the specifics of it, I mean, you kind of get the basics of just the CG being different and how that leads to a lot of different things. So, you get into how to stop the turns, or how to keep from ground looping, or, there's a lot of things in the process that I found to be interesting, in the sense that your tricycle gear instincts are going to be exactly the wrong thing to do at certain points. You really, for instance, when you land a tailwheel, you want to you're used to sort of flaring and keeping the yoke kind of back or whatever. But as soon as you land, you're kind of letting that pressure off. You can't do that in a tailwheel. You got to keep that nose wheel or the tailwheel pinned to the ground. You got to hold it back. And same thing with just the landing and anything. You just can't. They always say, you can't give it back. But anyway, first lesson, yes, went up, basically got familiar with the plane. Very cool plane. It was really funny to be doing 150 feet per minute climbs,
Yeah.
And the pitch attitude is so like, and he wants to do sort of cruise climbs a lot. He's trying to minimize the impact of all this on his plane, so we're not climbing out at VX or even VY. But even still, it's like, are we even pointed up? I feel like we're pointing down while we're trying to, like, the pitch attitude is so different on the climb out. The plane itself is just, kind of like, I guess a 150 is or something. It's just real fun and not twitchy, but just kind of, fun.
Yeah.
Stalls very benign, all that. So I just got used to the plane. And then really what you do is, and let me back up. Oh gosh, I missed all of this. Is the best part. The first thing I did when I got in the plane is we just went and taxied around. And that was so much fun. Taxiing is probably one of my favorite parts of tailwheel flying. Is all the work you have to do on the ground to keep it right, and how sharply and quickly you can turn, and it's just fun. But anyway, I did all the taxiing stuff, and you have to sort of get used to breaking the tailwheel loose from its kind of, you're familiar with this, right? Like it'll kind of, within a 20 to 30 degree range, it kind of locks in place, but with enough pressure, it'll break that boundary and then go into a totally free castering kind of thing to make really sharp turns. But then when you come back the other way, you've got to sort of extra whip the tail back the other way to get it to lock back in. Things like that. So anyway, and then the first thing we did was high speed taxis, and I was exhilarated as I was kind of terrified, because the amount of rudder control that you've got to exert and the dancing that you've got to do to keep this thing longitudinally aligned is kind of bonkers. And so when you're doing that on a 6,000 foot runway, for a long period of time, it's just like, oh my God. Anyway, I always felt like it was about to go out of control, and it wasn't. Super fun. Anyway, we took off, and then that was great. So then I'll try to condense the rest of this generally, but it took me a little over 5 hours to do it, which I think is kind of fast. But honestly, I took to it really, really well. I mean, he was sort of like, you just kind of got it, and it was one of those things where if you haven't been doing it very, very long, you just have to kind of like, are you sure? Like that.
Right.
But basically it amounted to doing that. Then you work on the wheel landings. Then you work on the 3-point landings, landing on the two mains and the tail wheel at the same time. And then you get those down, and then, that took about a lesson. And then I kind of worked on a little bit, getting in the early parts of the next lesson, and then went into wheel landings, which is so much fun. All of this is so much fun, but wheel landings are just cool, man. And
so is it a different, I'm guessing that in order to have the attitude that you need for each variant, so is it difference in power? Like is one of it kind of dragging it in one way so that you can be at the right attitude, and the other is less like that, so that you can have the different pitch attitudes? Yes.
So if you're doing a 3-point landing, you're basically getting it at stall, in its sort of on the ground attitude, which is still a super positive angle of attack. So, you're just trying to get to that place and stall it right there. So your speeds are very, stall, you're getting yourself to stall. Whereas wheel landing, you come in, and by the way, every single landing basically is a slip to land. And so that was also tremendously fun. To just we learned, in tricycle gear, you do some slips and cool. It's not like part of your almost every landing practice, what I mean? And it's fun, especially in a tailwheel with the windows open and whatever. But, anyway, wheel landing, you've got more speed, but you're coming in at a more, you're kind of like getting it down almost to the grass and then waiting for the runway to start. I did all of this on asphalt. So, it wasn't a grass strip. Mm-hmm. So that was, good in some ways and maybe not good in others, but I'm learning kind of like the hard way, honestly, to do it on asphalt. But anyway, so wheel landing, you come in, you're not coming in at a steep downward pitch and then kind of leveling it out. You're coming in a lot more flat with more speed, and then you're just finding a power setting that's whatever it needs to be. It's going to be, whatever, say 1400 RPM or something. And you just sit there, and if you can get the plane to just be slightly descending while you're, as your level of, coming across the runway, and you just wait, you just leave that power in, and you just keep on the rudders and just patient. And then you're just waiting for that. It just takes forever. It sometimes seems like, and then boom, it just touches. As soon as it touches, then it's a whole other thing that activates immediately, because that drag, you've got to push the yoke forward, and pull power, at the same time, basically. So you're now flying the tail, and you're trying to create a sort of negative angle of attack to keep the wheels pinned to the ground, because you've been coming in kind of fast. And if you have the wrong angle of attack, it's going to want to pick back up again. So anyway, so it's kind of a different set of things, and then you kind of let the tail come down and then pin it back, and then, all that. But there's just something about, I was trying to explain, like that moment, there's a couple of just moments. I love just doing takeoffs, in that moment where you can start to feel, I've never looked at gauges less flying and ever. Almost to the point I'm like, geez, I should probably look at some gauges. Airspeed, everything, and you're just feeling everything. It's not this kind of, and everything's outside. So anyway, there's a couple of moments. One is just taking off, when you're putting the power in, and then you're coming on the runway, and then you can just feel when the tail is ready to come up. And once you get just that feeling of the tail coming up, and then now you're at this level pitch attitude, and you're just dancing with the rudders, and then hoping that this Cessna 140 ever has enough power to take off. That period of time, it's so fun. And then just the inverse of that, just that moment where you're balancing the tail and all that. So super fun. Ben was a great instructor. I've never had more fun with an instructor, which I think was a huge help. I studied, I did all of the work well ahead of time. I asked him if I was the best student he ever had. And he said, I'll say you might be the best student I've had between the age of 50 and 55.
There you go. That's awesome.
But anyway, so yeah. And so there's a lot more coming. This is not stopping here. Oh, and we've done some grass stuff, but there's a lot more that's kind of happened to all this. But in general, I'm still going back. I don't have the endorsement. If this guy's going to have me rent his plane, I'm going to take it very seriously and make sure that I have run into some difficulties. But the last lesson was crosswinds and kind of chaos, and I loved it. I'm like, and the last thing, getting back in a Cherokee, it's like,
I bet
I'm like, I don't know, this is. Everything became so much easier in a way that I can never explain. But my longitudinal alignment and rudder control are already in such a short time on a level that I didn't even understand possible.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Aero Grizzly sums it up. It says the time when you relax in a nose wheel is the time to get to work in a tail wheel.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah. So you get to do more flying.
Yeah, for sure. The Sage is in the chat tonight, Ben Singer, and he asks, what was the hardest thing to learn during the tail wheel?
I think the hardest thing is when you are doing 3-point landings, and you just have to get comfortable with the idea that if you're at the right pitch attitude at the right time, you can no longer see down the runway at all. And transitioning from, inevitably your eyes want to go down the runway, but then there's a point where you have to transition to peripheral vision only, and not feeling weird about it. So I would say that's probably the most challenging thing, is trying to figure, the balance of how high am I off the ground, and how can I judge all of that and my alignment just peripherally. I think if I was doing that more to begin with, but it's just, you don't have to really do it, at least in this plane, any other time except for when you're doing a 3-point landing, and it's just at the last phases of that. So it's just strange to be like, I've got this totally under control. Wait, I can't see.
Right.
So maybe that, I guess. And just the general, just, people load you up with all this kind of, the ground loop monster and all this stuff. And it's like, it's as wild as I let some things get at certain points, and how my instructor was just kind of like laughing, like it wasn't a big deal. I was like, oh, okay. That, and just also the comfort of knowing, because the other part of it is when you're doing wheel landings, you're hesitant to really go nose or, push yoke forward, because you feel like I'm going to flip the plane over. But once you start to realize certain things like that, and just like, there's just certain thresholds and limits in place to where you kind of can't do the thing that you're afraid of doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Biff Benson asks, why are most of the approaches done with a slip?
Because I'm high.
Fair enough.
No, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. At this airport though, the approach, the direction I was usually coming in on for all the training, there's some high tension power lines that are kind of weirdly, I'm like, I don't like that. So, and just in general, I just am trying to fly higher approaches. Also again, I'm trying to shrink the size of my patterns and stay closer to the runway, and, just all of those things. So all that amounts to is, even if I'm kind of nailing the speeds, it's a Cessna. And so There you go. So my base turn is really quick. Next thing I'm on final. I don't want to start coming down because of the power lines. So I'm kind of waiting till I'm over the power lines, and then I put in the slip and just bring it right down. The really fun thing though is just being in a pretty good slip all the way, like for a wheel landing, because you can come all the way down to pretty much right there, and then get level, and then have your power set, and then you just wait. It's just such a fun
That's awesome.
thing, but you don't have to do it all the time. It's not like something you have to, or I'm not trying to make it sound like that.
One more here. Cheapskate Aviation wants to know, in the Cessna 140 that you flew, do you have to do S turns to see where you're going when you taxi?
So here's one funny thing is that when my first lesson in this 140, it had kind of regular tires on it, because he was sort of in between sets of his push tires. And so immediately I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see things. And then the next time I came back, I had these push tires on it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't see anything. Mm-hmm. I would say it's close on taxi. It's close, but I can see, and I can kind of get myself to see enough to taxi up, so I'm not having to do blind sort of taxiing S turns.
Well, that's great, man. I'm super happy for you. That opens up a whole other, set of airplanes you can fly, things you can do with them. You act like it's no big deal, but it's a big deal. I mean, that's a pretty good accomplishment. So that's pretty awesome. I'm super happy for you.
Thanks, man. It's gotten me to the point now where, as much as I need to get my instrument rating, I'm kind of like, but that takes away from funding that I could do to get Cessna 140.
There you go.
So I don't know, but I can't express. I mean, especially like on one of the first lessons. Yeah, the first lesson when I was just trying to get a feel for the plane, we just flew the Cumberland, the river back at like 500 feet, just going through, windows, doors open, whatever, and just. I was like, man, this is great. I could do this all the time. I could do this like for hours. So anyway, yeah, it's been, I appreciate it, but it's definitely been an eye-opening thing, and it definitely makes me want to, maybe there's other tail wheels I maybe you should look at, but my experience in a 140, I was like, this is the perfect mix of all the the things.
That's great.
But a certain YouTuber just got one, and it's going to get all Garminized. And so my first thought was, great. Now the cost of 140s has just gone up.
Yeah.
Because there's not that many of them.
Yeah. Someone said earlier, Stinky Weasel said 140A is a rare plane. I think less than 8,000 were made, if I'm thinking of the right one. Yeah,
I think it's even, and I think there might be 2,000 around, but yeah, it's pretty rare. He's got it tricked out though. It's got all the right things and none of the wrong things.
So cool.
Yeah.
So a week from today, a week from right now, this is a transition, right? It's transition time.
We're transitioning to another conversation.
So I should do a wipe effect.
Okay. Okay.
A week from this moment, right this minute, I will be with Cecilia, my daughter, on the ground at Osh Kosh. Probably, I forget when the sage is getting there, but I will be trying to find him at some point because we're going to go to Osh Kosh next week for a few days, flying in on Wednesday to Milwaukee and renting an SUV in Milwaukee, and then driving in. I have camping passes for general camping. So we have a spot. So we were going to take the SUV. So we're flying Southwest. So we each can check 2 bags. So we're taking minimal stuff for like our persons and all of the stuff we need to camp in our luggage. So like tent, chairs, and all of the other things that you have to have. And Sage offered, because he's going to park, he's flying in and is going to park. And he said, well, you ought to just come over to my plane and camp at my plane. And I'm like, well, that would be way cooler to camp under a wing than camping in the general camping area.
Yeah. So those heathens.
Yeah, I know. So I think we're going to try to hook up when we get out there, but we don't have any real agenda. I will tell you a funny story though. I saw a random thing on social media about a month ago that the FAA is doing a gigantic survey of people our age. It was almost tailored for me. It's like midlife aged people with a valid medical certificate. So any class medical, 1, 2, or 3, not basic med doesn't apply, but first, second, or third class. They're doing a cognitive study at Osh Kosh. Huh. So it's basically 2 computerized tests. There's no impact to you. They're not tying any test results to you as a human. They're just categorizing the result data based on age and what class of medical you hold. And they're handing out cash on the spot. Like if you go and take this thing, and I got signed up for a spot. So on Friday, I'm taking this FAA cognitive test. It's going to take 3 hours and then they're going to hand me $300 in cash for taking this computer test. Basically. And then
I'm going to go lose all those brain cells.
I'm going to lose. I'm going to use all my money on A&W root beer floats. Which is my favorite treat at Osh Kosh. Last time I was there, I kid you not, I bet I had 10 root beer floats while I was there. Like it was a sickness. I really pounded them pretty good.
Can we start a counter in the Discord?
We should. I'll keep track. I'll mention in there every time I have a root beer float. So I have to take like a whole box of Lactaid with me and keep them in my pocket so I can take a Lactaid every time I have a root beer float. But,
so the FAA cognitive study, is there any more detail about what that is or what their aim is?
I'll look it up and see if I can find a link. There is an article. I think they're just trying to get a gauge. There obviously is some catalyst for why they're doing this study, and I don't know exactly what it is. But it was interesting enough to me, and I'm a data geek, so I always appreciate, collecting sample points and just collecting data. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not worried about they're going to know all about the way you think about things.
Are they doing some sort of brainwave monitoring or what are they doing?
No, I think it's just based on your answers to this. It's probably a lot of problem solving, okay. I think it's going to be some of those, and I enjoy that stuff too. So I think it's going to be a pretty cool experience. Cecilia was just like, what am I supposed to do for 3 hours? I'm like, babe, it's Osh Kosh. I can assure you'll find something to see or do while I'm being tested. But so we're going to go in on Wednesday. We'll be there in time for nighttime activities on Wednesday. We have all day Thursday to go see all the things. see the air shows, see the nighttime air shows are my favorite thing. And then I'm going to try to hook up with some of my friends that I don't get to see very often in the aviation world, like Chris Palmer of Angle of Attack. I know he'll be there. I want to get a chance to hang out with him. And the last time I was there, I went to 2 ForeFlight events, which both were extremely helpful, tips and tricks and kind of like, ForeFlight stuff. So I haven't looked at the full schedule event, but if anybody's going to Osh Kosh and you don't take advantage of the education stuff that exists there, you really, really should. I mean, there is something every day for everyone. It's stuff that is really, really good content because everybody's there. I mean, everybody you would want to hear from is there. So I want to check that out, and I want to check out Garmin because the plane behind me needs to get a autopilot next year. And we're very seriously looking at the Garmin GFC 500. And I want to take a closer look at that and what's involved in the installation and kind of get an idea of how it'll work with our existing avionics package that's in this plane. So it should be a good time. I've wanted to go back. I went in 2020 or 2021 with my friend Cody. We flew up there in the Cherokee to Milwaukee. So I'm looking forward to going back again and seeing what's. Colin says that I need to visit the Joby trailer. I will have to do that. I'm assuming. Are you going to be there? I'm assuming. Yeah, we'll have to go hook up. And if anybody's going, definitely hook up. Send me a message on YouTube or in the Discord. I want to meet as many people as I can. We've been trying to kind of set some stuff up with some of my patrons already who I know are going to be there to try to have time to meet up. Like I said, we have no agenda. I have no obligations there. I'm going to film some, but without the flying part, I think we're going to do kind of a condensed video. We'll film our excursion out there on commercial travel and all that, but we'll definitely film some at the show. But I don't have any real big agenda other than just spend a few days. And then we're leaving Saturday. So here was the other thing. Logistically, we have an early flight on Sunday. And so we're going to actually leave Saturday evening and drive back to Milwaukee and stay at the airport hotel Saturday night. I had points. I had Hilton points. Thanks work for my work travel for all the points that I've gained. And so we'll stay in Milwaukee Saturday night and then fly home Sunday morning on Southwest. Should be a good time. I'm super excited to go back. I'm excited for Cecilia to see it. She was mad that the first time I went, I didn't take her.
And she's not been.
No, she's not been.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So it's just her and I, and we'll get to spend, all day Thursday, Friday, and Saturday out there just hanging out and seeing airplanes and talking to people and watching air shows.
Do you think there would be a point where she's just too cool for you to do father-daughter stuff,
Well, I think it's conceivable. She's pretty like me. She's pretty busy. She keeps herself pretty occupied. She's heading to WVU in the fall to study environmental science, forestry kind of stuff. And so she's living on campus. So she's moving in August. So fortunately, she's only 20 minutes away. She's just up in Morgantown. So pretty close here, but
smart move as far as laundry goes.
Yeah, exactly. But she's got a roommate and ready to go. But should be a good time. If you're going, please hit me up. I definitely want to see everybody. This is a social trip for us. I would just like to hang with as many of you as I can and just dig the airplanes together. We'll have to get you up there one of these times.
I know. It's such a weird time of year, at least for us, because, Katie's a teacher. So, and these days, the life of a teacher for summertime, it ends in July. It's not like it used to be. So, she's kind of already having to do stuff kind of now, but there's going to be actual sort of scheduled type things that are already coming up sort of during that kind of time. I would love to figure out a way to go with her as opposed to just me. But I'd love to get there. I do, I like things. I like aviation things, but the crowd things sometimes I'm not like a nervous person. It can just be kind of exhausting or just creature comforts as you get older. That's like a midlife challenge, right? Like
I feel that. I didn't want to camp. I mean, I'm not a camper. Like this isn't my scene, but like the reality of trying to actually find somewhere that you don't have to like take a second mortgage to stay. Correct. Or if you don't book years in advance. I mean, you can't, there's not a lot of great options. And,
the mechanic of our airplane, he goes up there and he was explaining that we've got an RV, big RV, we've got a big RV, our other family, they have a big RV, their family, they have, so it's basically 4 or 5 with these big RVs. And we kind of make a whole sort of pit of
that's cool.
Like a walled kingdom of RVs and do our whole thing at Osh Kosh, and we go for the whole thing. And I was just thinking, I had so many thoughts, but I was like, what's it like to have not only just an RV, but all these other people where everybody else has an RV, like you're all like RV gang. Right. And then, also I was thinking about how do you have family that you want to be around in that way for such a long period of time? No, I'm just kidding. But
I got to think about things like here are the things that I'm already nervous about. I don't like. I'm already in my mind. There are stressors for me.
We're tapping into something here.
I don't like community showers.
Oh yeah,
because the logistics. I don't like the logistics. Like I've got to wear sandals or flip flops, and then I got to haul a towel around. And then like. Well, I've got to do something with this towel when I come back, like, cause it's got to last me 3 days, or whatever. And like, there are a couple towels, it's just the logistic, and I got to have a little caddy to carry my like stuff to the shower. And like, and I don't like heat, and I'm outside. I don't have air conditioning. I mean, it's just, I'm not looking forward to that part.
There's something about surviving all that stuff where you feel fondly about it after, but in the midst of it, you're just kind of like, oh God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So what else is going to be miserable so that I can feel better about not going?
There's plenty bugs. Inevitably the weather, like it seems like every year there's a storm, there's something that rolls through and like wreaks havoc for like a few hour period over the event. So I'm hoping that happens before we get there. And like, we just get that out of the way. And I'm also secretly optimistic, although I don't know, based on the current temperature trend of the entire planet at this moment in time, I'm not super optimistic that it's going to be cooler next week in Osh Kosh. I haven't looked at the weather yet, but boy, it would just be, what a delight it would be to be like 72 and partly cloudy, like for 4 days in a row. And I'd be like, ooh, lows in the 50s. Like this would be amazing. I don't
like
know.
Basically exactly whatever you would have your heat pump set for.
Right. I don't know that we're going to get there, but that's the hope anyway. But it's fun. No agenda. Hang out, look at airplanes. It'd be good to relax for a couple of days. Just take it all in. So,
oh man, that's super exciting. Super exciting. So did we have any questions from the peanut gallery that we want to try to jump into or anything of that?
No.
They're kind of just talking amongst themselves.
Yeah, which is great. It's one of my favorite. I read every one that goes by. I really enjoy the like side conversations that always happen in the chat on Wednesday nights when we're here recording is a great place to hang out if you just want to hang out and talk to each other.
Oh, Cheapskate Aviation is wondering if I was talking about big RVs. So an RV-10. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The big version of the RV.
Like, I guess I don't know enough about those things, but is it just me or are RVs sort of crazy expensive?
I mean, I don't think they're crazy expensive. I know somebody who built one. There's a grass strip near here. The guy that owns it built his own RV. I don't remember what model it is. But he flies in and out of his little grass strip. He keeps inviting us down. A bunch of people from our flying club have taken the 172 or the 150 down there. People have been in and out of there all the time. I'm going to go down one of these days. I've never done grass. I will probably.
Sure you did.
I did not. I will probably be
high school. Come on.
Nope. I will probably do my diligence and go with an instructor the first time. I mean, the science of it isn't crazy, and it's a remarkably well kept field. So I'm not super worried about the logistics, but we'll go in once with somebody else just to make sure I know what I'm doing. And thank you, Ben Singer.
With the weather, Ben with the weather.
Singer with weather. Let's send it over to Ben for this weather update. Ben, well, Chris, forecast calling for 90-degree temperatures all week at Osh Kosh. Wonderful.
It was 91% humidity here the other day, and we were just trying to figure out like how's that even possible?
It's wicked.
Is it going to be humid or just like a pleasant 90? I just feel like everything up north should be cooler, but it's just not the way it works.
A pleasant 90.
Yeah.
I have had a pleasant 90. We're in Death Valley. It shocked me one year when we went out to Vegas and went to Death Valley. And it was like 100 degrees. And we're just walking around like, man, I could do this. I could be out here all afternoon. And that's how you get in trouble. Like,
for dehydration.
Mm-hmm. And so, and make sure you wear your sunscreen, but there is definitely a difference in, Death Valley 100 versus like 90 in Osh Kosh, Wisconsin. I'm certain that Osh Kosh is going to be far less comfortable.
Well, you're going to have all these root beer floats in your system. So you're going to be immune to
all this dairy out in the hot afternoon sun. I'd be like, oh.
No more floats. But yeah, so well, I guess we don't have anything else. We can just go ahead and cut on out of here. We'll keep it short and sweet. If anybody wants to fly Tailwheel here in the Nashville area, actually, I've had a couple people reach out prior to this and have been curious and wanted to get in touch with my instructor. I highly recommend him, but it's flywithben.com. And like I said, his website's rich with all sorts of information and cool stuff. He also, by the way, the side note, people have asked me if I filmed that stuff. I just didn't really. And he has a 360 camera and a GoPro in the plane. I just never remembered. We just never, like half the time we just forgot to turn. We were just having fun and it was just happening. And I was just sort of consumed in what was going on. I did get some 360 footage here and there, which by the way, side note, is weird as hell to deal with.
Oh, it's such a pain. I love it.
Weird.
I love it. I love it. And the flexibility and the things you can do and the way you can pan shots. And I mean, I love it, but you are right. Working with it in your workflow is just a beast. It is a beast. It's a beast.
Yeah. And SoCal Flying Monkey has a great video on how to set it up to where you can work with those files natively in Resolve. Yeah. I was never able to get it to work. And I also just kind of didn't care enough. You know, I'm like, I don't know, like how much am I really going to lean into this? I don't even have a 360 camera, but it was just fun to kind of play around with for a few things. But anyway, point is I didn't really film much of anything, but I did actually shoot some Super 8 of just the environs and some B-roll.
That's awesome.
And then I've also got another lesson coming up where I'm going to, I'm going to put some energy into really documenting a lesson, and it's not like, oh, well, I've already got it all mastered down. Not like, it's just going to be me clanking around these, landings that he tells me are pretty good that I'm like, that was not that great. Come on.
That's awesome.
So anyway, so more to come with all that. I got a few things coming. So thanks for everybody's patience. It's a hard time of year. There's just a lot of, it's like a mad dash before the other mad dash of the fall. And it's just weird.
Right. Well, I appreciate you potting with me tonight. I'm glad we were able to hook up again after a slight delay in getting back into the thing. And certainly to everyone who hung out in the chat, it's always great to see you guys here. We really appreciate the support. And to everyone else listening on the audio podcast, please remember to do the things that we love you to do, which is like things, subscribe to the podcast if you're not, leave an iTunes, an Apple Podcasts review and a rating if you can find the time to do that. It helps us be seen by other folks just like you who enjoy this podcast. It really helps get it out in front of other people and kind of helps us get some traction there. And it's a good time. I can't wait to go to Osh Kosh. We'll talk all about that at our next event when we come back. And if you're going, hit me up. Let's connect while we're there, and I'll see you in Wisconsin. Well, not you, Brian, but some of you.
Can I break the flow here of this brilliant exit you've been putting together?
Well, of course. Nobody cares.
On the on the note of 5-star reviews on Apple iTunes, I wanted to read one that is recent from Lost Rogue. Fun and informative. I started taking flying lessons in the fall of 22 at the age of 57. I stumbled across Chris Moran's YouTube channel while looking for aviation content. That in turn led me to this podcast. It's a 5-star pod to be sure. Chris and Brian bring excellent conversation to a group of mid and later life pilots, sharing successes, challenges, views, and opinions in a fun and entertaining way. Their guest speakers and listener-produced episodes have been perfect. The community that has grown up around them is welcoming and friendly, and I'm happy to have become a member of that. I've never watched a podcast live until now. I join their live stream whenever I can. This podcast is well worth your time.
No,
it doesn't get much better than that.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. That means a lot. Love hearing those kind of things. It's community. We say it all the time is my favorite part of what has happened here. And we're just so thankful for all of you. So thanks for listening and for watching. And thanks for potting, Brian. And
see you later, buddy. Thanks so much.
Yep. We'll see you guys real soon.